Am I on? I can't believe it. Must just be on at 4:30. I can't make it on time. I keep it trying and trying. Actually, I've been here for a while. I got up on time, but I just couldn't get started. Um, I don't know. I think this is a good idea. Maybe try this just chatting category for a while. Because yeah, chatting, playing. A lot of people would say, well, you're playing a pay-to-win game, and you're not paying, so it's not interesting. Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's interesting if I can turn it around. Let's see.
Hoveth thee not to throw away thy reason. Soti said, the son of Gavalgana, having in this manner administered comfort to the royal Dhritarashtra, overwhelmed with grief for his son, then restored his mind to peace. Taking these facts for his subject, Vaipayana composed a holy Upanishad that has been published to the world by learned and sacred bards in the Puranas composed by them. The study of the Bharata is an act of piety. He that readeth even 1 foot with belief hath his sins entirely purged away. Here endeavors, Vivashis, and immaculate Brahmashis of good deeds have been spoken of, and likewise Yakshas and great Uragas, Nagas. Herein also hath been described the eternal Vasudeva possessing the 6 attributes. He is the true and just, the pure and holy, the eternal Brahma, the supreme soul, the true constant light, whose divine deeds wise and learned recounts, from whom hath proceeded the non-existent and existent non-existent universe, with principles of generation and progression, and birth, death and rebirth. That also hath been treated, of which is called a Dhyatma, the superintending spirit of nature, that partaketh of the attributes of the 5 elements. That also hath been described, who is per ratio being above such epithets as undisplayed and the like, also that which the foremost Yakas exempt from the common destiny, and endued with the power of meditation and tapas, behold dwelling in their hearts as a reflected image in the mirror. The man of faith, devoted to piety and constant in the exercise of virtue, on reading this section is freed from sin. The believer that constantly heareth recited this section of the Bharata, called the introduction, from the beginning, falleth not into difficulty. The man repeating any part of the introduction in the 2 twilight hours during such act, freed from the sins contracted during the day or the night. This section, the body of the Bharata, is heat and nectar. As butter is incurred, Brahmana among bipeds, the Aranyaka among the Vedas, and nectar among medicines, as the sea is eminent among receptacles of water, and the cow among quadrupeds, as are these among the things mentioned, so is the Bharata said to be among the stream. He that causeth it, even the single foot thereof, to be recited to Brahmanas during a Srada, his offerings of the food and drink for the maintenance of his ancestors become inexhaustible. By the aid of history and the Puranas, the Veda may be expounded, but the Veda is afraid of one of little information, lest he shouldn't. The learned man who recites to other this Veda of Vayasarusa advantage. It may without doubt destroy even the sin of killing the embryo and the like. He that readeth this holy chapter of the moon, readeth the whole of the Bharata, I ween. The man who with reverence daily listeneth to this sacred work acquireth long life and renown, and ascendeth to heaven. In former days, having placed the 4 Vedas on one side and the Bharata on the other, these were weighed in the balance by the celestials assembled for that purpose. And as the matter weighed heavier than the 4 Vedas with their mystery, from that period it hath been called in the world Mahabharata, the great Bharata. Being esteemed superior both in substance and gravity of import, it is denominated Mahabharata, an account of such substance and gravity of import. He that knoweth its meaning is saved from all his sin. Taper is innocent, study is harmless. The ordinance of the Vedas prescribed for all the tribes are harmless. The acquisition of wealth by exertion is harmless. But when they are abused in their practices, it is then that they become sources of evil. Section 2. The Rishis said, O son of Sita, we wish to hear a full and circumstantial account of the place mentioned by you as Samantapan Chiraya. Soti said, Listen, O ye Brahmanas, to the sacred descriptions I utter, O ye best of men, you deserve to hear of the place known as Samantapan Chaka. In the interval between the Treta and Dwapara Yugas, Rama, the son of Jamadani, great among all who have borne arms, urged by impatience of wrong, repeatedly smote the noble race of Kshatriyas. And when that fiery meteor, by his own valor, annihilated the entire tribe of the Kshatriyas, he formed at Samantapan Chaka 5 lakes of blood. We are told that his reason being overpowered by anger, he offered oblations of blood to the remains of his ancestors, standing in the midst of the sanguine waters of those lakes. It was then that his forefathers, of whom Ritika was the first, having arrived there, addressed him thus, O Rama, O blessed Rama, O offspring of Brug, we have been gratified with the reverence thou hast shown for thy ancestors and with thy valor, O mighty one. Blessings be upon thee. O thou illustrious one, ask the boon that thou mayst desire. Rama said, If, O fathers, ye are favorably disposed towards me, the boon I ask is that I may be absolved from the sins born of my having annihilated the Kshatriyas in anger, and that the lakes I have formed may become famous in the world as holy shrines. The Bhadras then said, So shall it be. But be thou pacified. And Rama was pacified accordingly. The region that layeth near unto those lakes of gory water, from that time hath been celebrated as Samantapan Chaka the Holy. The wise have declared that every country did be distinguished by a name significant of some circumstance which may have rendered it famous. In the interval between the Dwapara and the Kali Yugas, there happened at Samantapan Chaka the encounter between the armies of the Kauravas and the Pandavas. In that holy region, without ruggedness of any kind, were assembled 18 of Shorinis of soldiers eager for battle. And, O Brahmanas, having come thereto, they were all slain on the spot. Thus the name of that region, O Brahmanas, hath been explained, and the country prescribed to you as a sacred and delightful one. I have mentioned the whole of what relevant to it as the region is celebrated throughout the 3 worlds. The Rishis said, We have a desire to know, O son of Sita, what is implied by the term Shortini that hath been used by thee. Tell us in full what is the number of horse and foot, chariots and elephants, which compose an Shortini, for thou art fully informed. Soti said, 1 chariot, 1 elephant, 5 foot soldiers, and 3 horses form 1 patti. 3 pattas make 1 cinemaker. 3 cinemakas are called a gulma. 3 gulmas, a gana. 3 ganas, a vahini. 3 vahinis together are called a pratana. 3 pratanas form a chamuk. 3 chamas, 1 anakini, and an anakini taken 10 times 4, as it is styled by those who know, an Shortini. O ye best of Brahmanas, arithmeticians have calculated that the number of chariots in an Shortini is 21,870. The measure of elephants must be fixed at the same number. O ye pure, you must know that the number of foot soldiers is 109,350. The number of horse is 65,610. These, O Brahmanas, as fully explained by me, are the numbers of an Shortini as said by those acquainted with the principles of numbers. O best of Brahmanas, According to this calculation were composed the 18 Okshoinis of the Kaurava and the Pandava army. Time. Whose acts are wonderful assembled them on that spot, and having made the Kauravas the cause, destroyed them all. Bhishma acquainted with choice of weapons, fought for 10 days. Drona protected the Kaurava Vahinis for 5 days. Karma the desolator of hostile armies fought for 2 days, and Salya for half a day. After that lasted for half a day the encounter with clubs between Duryodhana and Bhima. At the close of that day, as Wataman and Krita destroyed the army of Yudhishthira in the night while sleeping without suspicion of danger. O Sonaka, this best of narrations called Bharata, which has begun to be repeated at thy sacrifice, was formerly repeated at the sacrifice of Janujaya by an intelligent disciple of Vyasa. It is divided into several sections. In the beginning are Porshai, Paul Omer, and Istika Parvas, describing in full the valor and renown of kings. It is a work whose description, diction, and sense are varied and wonderful. It contains an account of various manners and rites. It is accepted by the wise, as the state called Irachia is by men desirous of final release, as self among things to be known, as life among things that are dear. So is this history that furnisheth a means of arriving at the knowledge of Brahma the first among all the sastras. There is not a story current in this world that doth depend upon this history, even as the body upon the foot that it taketh. As masters of good lineage are ever attended upon by servants desirous of fulfillment, so is the Brahta cherished by all poets. As the words constituting the several branches of knowledge appertaining to the world and the Veda display only vowels and consonants, so this excellent history displayeth only the highest wisdom. Listen, O ye ascetics, to the outlines of the several divisions, parvas, of this history called Bharata, endued with great wisdom, of sections and feet that are wonderful and various, of subtle meanings and logical connections, and embellished with the substance of the Vedas. The first Parva is called Delugamurta, the second, Sangraha, then Porshai, then Paul Omer, the Istika, then Adivan Save the Tarana. Then comes Sambhava of wonderful and thrilling incidents. Then comes Jatu Grihadaha, setting fire to the house of Lap, and then Hidimabida, the killing of the Dimpa Parvas. Then comes Barkabada, slaughter of Bark, and then Chigraratha. The next is called Wayanvara, selection of husband by Khan Charlie, in which Arjuna by the exercise of Kshatriya virtue, one drop party for wife. Then comes Vaivaka, marriage. Then comes Viduragamana, advent of Vidura, Rajalabha, acquirement of kingdom, Arjuna Vinayvasa, exile of Arjuna, and Subhadra Harana, the carrying away of Subhadra. After these come Harana Halika, Kandava Daha, the burning of the Kandava forest, and Maya Dasana, meeting with Maya the Ajona architect. Then comes Hava, Mantha, Jarasandha, Digvijaya, general campaign. After Digvijaya come Rajas Mayaka, Argyle Harana, the robbing of the Argyle, and Sisupradai, the killing of Sisupra. After these, Dilta, Gambia, Ainadiluta, subsequent to gambling, Oranyaka, and Kramira destruction of the Kramira, the Arjuna Vigamana, the travels of Arjuna, Hair Iraq. In the last hath been described the battle between Arjuna and Mahadeva in the guise of a hunter. After this Indraloka Vigamana, the journey to the regions of Indra, then that mine of religion and virtue, the highly pathetic Nalopakayana, the story of Nala. After this last, to the Yatra or the pilgrimage of the wise prince of the Kuras, the death of Jitajura, and the battle of the Yakshas. Then the battle with the Nivalkavashas, Ajugara, and Markandeya Samazya, meeting with Markandeya. Then the meeting of Draupadi and Satyabhama, Goshaidra, Murgaswapna, dream of the deer. Then the story of Brihadaranyaka, and then Drama. Then Draupadi Harani, the affliction of Draupadi, Jayadratha by Matla, the release of Jayadratha. Then the story of Savitri illustrating the great merit of connubial chastity. After this last, the story of Rama. The parva that comes next is called Chandrakirana, the step of the evening. That which comes next is Aranya and then Ahirata. Then the entry of the Pandavas and the fulfillment of their promise of living anon to 1 year. Then the destruction of the Kikakas. Then the attempt to take the throne of Vairati by the Kauravas. The next is called the marriage of Abhimanyu with the daughter of Vairata. The next you must know is the most wonderful father called Udyoga. The next must be known by the name of Sanjayayana, the arrival of Sanjaya. Then comes Prajagara, the sleeplessness of Dhritarashtra owing to his anxiety. Then Sanat Sujata, in which are the mysteries of spiritual philosophy. Then Yanasati, and then the arrival of Krishna. Then the story of Matali and then of Galaba. Then the stories of Savitri, Vamadeva, and Venu. Then the story of Jamadanya and Shadasarajika. Then the arrival of Krishna at the court, and then Vaidulaputarasasana. Then the muster of troops and the story of Sheta. Then, must you know, comes the quarrel of the Household Karna. Then the march to the field of the troops of both sides. The next hath been called numbering the Ratas and Atiratas. Then comes the arrival of the messenger Aluka, which kindled the wrath of the Pandavas. The next that comes, you must know, is the story of Amba. Then comes the thrilling story of the installation of Bhishma as commander-in-chief. The next is called the creation of the insular region Jambu, then Bhumi. Then the account about the formation of islands. Then comes the Bhagavad Gita, and then the death of Bhishma. Then the installation of Drona, then the destruction of the Sansaptakas. Then the death of Abhimanyu, and then the vow of Arjuna to slay Jayadratha. Then the death of Jayadratha, and then of Ghatotkach. Then, must you know, comes the story of the death of Drona of surprising interest. The next that comes is called the discharge of the weapon called Narayana. Then, you know, is Karna, and then Salya. Then comes the immersion in the lake, and then the encounter between Bhima and Duryodhana with clubs. Then comes Saraswati, and then the descriptions of holy shrines, and then genealogies. Then comes Saustika describing incidents disgraceful to the honor of the Kurus. Then comes the Ayaka of harrowing incidents. Then comes Jalapradana, oblations of water to the names of the deceased, and then the wailings of the women. The next must be known as Sarada describing the funeral rites performed for the slain warriors. Then comes the destruction of the Rakshasa Charvaka, who had assumed the disguise of a Brahmana for deceiving Yudhishthira. Then the coronation of the wise Yudhishthira. The next is called the Grihapravibhaga. Then comes Anti, then Rajadharma meets Artsna, then Apadharma, then Mokshadharma. Those that follow are called respectively Sukaprasna Abhigamana, Ramaprasna Nusana, the origin of Devasa, the disputations with Maya. The next is to be known as Ayu's art and craft. Then the ascension of Bhishma to heaven. Then the horse sacrifice, which when read further Thor sings away. The next must be known as the Anu Jaita, in which are words of spiritual philosophy. Those that follow are called as from Vasa, Patadarshana, meeting with the spirit of the deceased son, and the arrival of Narada. The next is called Morzala, which abounds with terrible and fear incidents. Then comes Mahapusthanika and ascension to heaven. Then comes the Plana, which is called Turbans. In this last are contained Vaishnupava, Vishnu's frolic and feats as a child, the destruction of Kamsa, and lastly, the very wonderful Baby Janapava, in which there are prophecies regarding the future. The Haisudvyasa composed these 100 pavas, of which the above is only an abridgment. having distributed them into 18, the son of Suta recited them consecutively in the forest of Naimishka as follows. In the Adir part are contained Hoshai, Paul Omer, Istakar, Adai Van Savatara, Thamva, the burning of the house of Lak, the slaying of Hidimba, the destruction of the Ajuravaka, Chitrartha, the Swayamvara of Draupadi, her marriage after the overthrow of rivals in war, the arrival of Vidura, the restoration of Arjuna's exile, the abduction of Subhadra, the gift and receipt of the marriage dower, the burning of the Kandava forest, and the meeting with the Asura architect, Maya. The Porshaya Partha treats of the greatness of Utanka and the Pauloma of the sons of Buddha. The Istika describes the birth of Garuda and of the Nagas, snakes, the churning of the ocean, the incidents relating to the birth of the celestial steed Duakaitrava, and finally, the dynasty of Bharata, as described in the snake sacrifice of King Janamjaya. The Sambhava Partha narrates the birth of various kings and heroes, and that of the sage, Krishna, Dvaipayana, the partial incarnations of deities, the generation of Danavas and Yakshas of great prowess, and serpents, Gandhavas, birds, and of all creatures, and lastly, of the life and adventures of King Bharata, the progenitor of the line that goes by his name, the son born of Sakantala in the hermitage of the ascetic Kanwa. This parva also describes the greatness of the Griti and the births of the Vasas in the house of Santanu and their ascension to heaven. In this parva is also narrated the birth of Bhishma uniting in himself portions of the energies of the other Vasas, his renunciation of royalty and adoption of the Brahmacharya mode of life, his adherence to his vows, his protection of Chitrangada, and after the death of Chitrangada, his protection of his younger brother, Vichitravirya, and his placing the latter on the throne, the birth of Dharma among men in consequence of the curse of Anumandavya, the births of Dhritarashtra and Pandu through the potency of Vyasa's blessing, and also the birth of the Pandavas, the plottings of Duryodhana to send the sons of Bandu to Vrinavata, and the other dark counsels of the sons of Dhritarashtra in regard to the Pandavas. Then the advice administered to Yudhishthira on his way by that well-wisher of the Pandavas, Vidura, in the Mithya language, the digging of the hole, the burning of Virochana, and the sleeping woman of the Fowler cart, with her 5 sons, in the house of Lak, the meeting of the Pandavas in the dreadful forest with Hidimba, and the slaying of her brother Hidimba by whom of great prowess, the birth of Ghatotkach, the meeting of the Pandavas with Vyasa, and in accordance with his advice their stay in disguise in the house of a Brahmana in the city of Ekatpakra, the destruction of the Ajuravaka, and the amazement of the popular sacrifice, the extraordinary births of Krishna and Drishthadama, the departure of the Pandavas to Panchala in obedience to the injunction of Vyasa, and moved deeply by the desire of winning the hand of Draupadi on learning the tidings of the Swayamvara from the lips of a Brahmana, victory of Arjuna over a Gandharva, called Angarapana, on the banks of the Bhagirati, his contraction of friendship with his adversary, and his hearing from the Gandharva the history of Tirtha, Vasishta, and Orva. This part treats of the journey of the Pandavas towards Panchala, the acquisition of Draupadi in the midst of all the Rajas by Arjuna, after having successfully pierced the mark, and in the ensuing fight, the defeat of Thalia, Kama, and all the other crowned heads at the hands of Bhima and Arjuna of great prowess, the ascertainment by Balama and Krishna at the sight of these matchless exploits, that the heroes were the Pandavas, and the arrival of the brothers at the house of the potter where the Pandavas were staying, the dejection of Drupada on learning that Draupadi was to be wedded to 5 husbands, the wonderful story of the 5 Indras related in consequence, the extraordinary and divinely ordained wedding of Draupadi, the sending of Vidura by the sons of Dhritarashtra as envoy to the Pandavas, the arrival of Vidura and his sight to Krishna, the abode of the Pandavas in Kandavaprastha, and then the ruler and one of the kingdom, fixing of terms by the sons of Pandu, in obedience to the injunction of Narada, the connubial companionship with Krishna. In like manner hath the history of Sunda and Upasunda been recited in this. This parva then treats of the departure of Arjuna to the forest according to the vow, he having seen Draupadi and Yudhishthira sitting together as he entered the chamber to take out arms for delivering the kine of a certain Brahmana. This parva then describes Arjuna's meeting on the way with Alupai, the daughter of a Naga serpent. It then relates his visits to several sacred spots, the birth of Babruvahana, the deliverance by Arjuna of the 5 celestial damsels who had been turned into alligators by the implication of a Brahmana, the meeting of Madhava and Arjuna on the holy spot called Prabhasa, the carrying away of Subhadra by Arjuna, incited thereto by her brother Krishna, in the wonderful car moving on land and water, and through mid-air, according to the wish of the rider, the departure for Indraprastha, with a dower, the conception in the womb of Subhadra of that prodigy of prowess, Abhimanyu, Yajnas, and is giving birth to children. Then follows the pleasure trip of Krishna and Arjuna to the banks of the Jamuna and the acquisition by them of the discus and the celebrated Bhaugandaiva, the burning of the forest of Kandava, the rescue of Maya by Arjuna, and the escape of the serpent Kama and the begetting of a son by that best of rishis, Mandapula, in the womb of the bird Sanji. This parva is divided by Vyasa into 227 chapters. These 227 chapters contain 8,884 slokas. The second is the extensive parva called Sabwadhi Assembly, full of matter. The subjects of this parva are the establishment of the Grand Hall by the Pandavas, their review of their retainers, the description of the Lokapalas by Narada well acquainted with the celestial regions, the preparations for the Rajasuya sacrifice, the destruction of Jarasandha, the deliverance by Vasudeva of the princes confined in a mountain pass, the campaign of universal conquest by the Pandavas, the arrival of the princes at the Rajasuya sacrifice with tribute, the destruction of Sisupala on the occasion of the sacrifice, in connection with offering of Argaya, Bhimsena's ridicule of Duryodhana in the assembly, Duryodhana's sorrow and envy at the sight of the magnificent scale on which the arrangements had been made, the indignation of Duryodhana in consequence, and the preparations for the game of dice, the defeat of Yudhishthira at play by the wily Sakuni, the deliverance by Dhritarashtra of his afflicted daughter-in-law, Draupadi plunged in the sea of distress caused by the gambling, as of the boat tossed about by the tempestuous waves, the endeavors of Duryodhana to engage Yudhishthira again in the game, and the exile of the defeated Yudhishthira with his brothers. These constitute what has been called by the great Vyasa the Sabha Parva. This parva is divided into 8 sections, O best of Brahmanas, of 2,507 slokas. Then comes the third parva called Aranyaka, relating to the forest. This parva treats of the wending of the Pandavas to the forest and the citizens, following the wise Yudhishthira's adoration of the god of day, according to the injunctions of Dharma, to be gifted with the power of maintaining the dependent Brahmanas with food and drink, the creation of food through the grace of the sun, the expulsion by Dhritarashtra of Vidura, who always spoke for his master's good, Vidura's coming to the Pandavas and his return to Dhritarashtra at the solicitation of the latter, the wicked Duryodhana's plottings to destroy the forest-ranging Pandavas, being incited thereto by Gana, the appearance of Vyasa and his dissuasion of Duryodhana bent on going to the forest, the history of Zorabi, the arrival of Maitreya, his laying down to Dhritarashtra the course of action, and his curse on Duryodhana, Bhima's slaying of Kurmira in battle, the coming of the Panchalas and the princes of the Vrishan erased the Yudhishthira on hearing of his defeat at the unfair gambling by Sakuni, Dhananjaya's allaying the wrath of Krishna's Draupadi's lamentations before Madhava, Krishna's cheering her. The fall of Saurabha also has been here described by the Rishi. Also Krishna's bringing Subhadra with her son to Dwaraka, and Drishtadyumna's bringing the son of Draupadi to Panchala, the entrance of the sons of Pandu into the romantic Dwaita wood, conversation of Bhima, Yudhishthira, and Draupadi, the coming of Vyasa to the Pandavas and his endowing Yudhishthira with the power of Pratismriti. Then, after the departure of Vyasa, the removal of the Pandavas to the forest of Kamyaka, their wanderings of Arjuna of immeasurable prowess in search of weapons, his battle with Mahadeva in the guise of a hunter, his meeting with the Lokapalas and receipt of weapons from them, his journey to the regions of Indra for arms and the consequent anxiety of Dhritarashtra, the wailings and lamentations of Yudhishthira on the occasion of his meeting with the worshipful great sage Brihadaswami. Here occurs the holy and highly pathetic story of Nala, illustrating the patience of Damayanti and the character of Nala. Then the acquirement by Yudhishthira of the mysteries of dice from the same great sage. Then the arrival of the Rishi Lomazel from the heavens to where the Pandava were, and the receipt by these high suit dwellers in the woods of the intelligence brought by the Rishi of their brother Arjuna, staving in the heavens. Then the pilgrimage of the Pandavas to various sacred spots in accordance with the message of Arjuna, and their attainment of great merit and virtue consequent on such pilgrimage. Then the pilgrimage of the great sage Narada to the shrine of Lotus. Also the pilgrimage of the High-suit Pandavas. Here is the deprivation of the Kana of his earrings by Indra. Here also is recited the sacrificial magnificence of Gaia. Then the story of Agastya, in which the Rishyata, the Ajuravadapi, and his connubial connection with Lopanmudra from the desire of offspring. Then the story of Rishyasringa, who adopted Brahmacharya mode of life from his very boyhood. Then the history of Rama of great prowess, the son of Jamadani, in which has been narrated the death of Kartavirya and the Hayayas. Then the meeting between the Pandavas and the Vrishanis in the sacred spot called Prabhasa. Then the story of Sukanya, in which Kayavana, the son of Bhrigu, made the twins, Aswinis, drink at the sacrifice of King Tharyati, the Soma juice, from which they had been excluded by the other gods, and in which besides is shown how Kayavana himself acquired perpetual youth as a boon from the grateful Aswinis. Then hath been described the history of King Mandata, then the history of Prince Jantu, and how King Somaka, by offering up his only son, Jantu, in sacrifice obtained 100 others. Then the excellent history of the hawk and the pigeon. Then the examination of the kings Sivi by Indra, Agni, and Dharma. Then the story of Ashtavakra, in which occurs the disputation at the sacrifice of Janaka between the Trishi and the first of logicians, Vandi, the son of Varuna, the defeat of Vandi by the great Ashtavakra, and the release by the Rishi of his father from the depths of the ocean. Then the story of the Advaita, and then that of the great Travya. Then the departure of the Pandavas, the Gandhamadana, and their abode in the asylum called Narayana. Then Bhimasana's journey to Gandhamadana at the request of Draupadi, in search of the sweet-scented flower. Bhima's meeting on his way, in a grove of bananas, with Hanuman, the son of Pavana of great prowess. Bhima's fight in the tank, and the destruction of the flowers therein for obtaining the sweet-scented flower. He was in search of his consequent battle with the mighty Rakshasas and the Yakshas of great crowns, including Hanuman, the destruction of the Ajurajata by the meeting of the Pandavas with the royal sage Vrishapava, their departure for the asylum of Ashtishna and abode therein, the incitement of Bhima to acts of vengeance by
500,000
Draupadi.
damage.
Then
One of
is
my
narrated the ascent on the hill of Traialasa by Bimmerson, his terrific battle with the mighty Yakshi headed by Hanuman, then the meeting of the Pandavas with Vaisravana, Yudhira, and the meeting with Arjuna after he had obtained for the purpose of Yudhishthira many celestial weapons, then Arjuna's terrible encounter with the Nivatakavishas dwelling in Hiranyakava, and also with the Polams and the Kalakas, their destruction at the hands of Arjuna, the commencement of the display of the celestial weapons by Arjuna before Yudhishthira, the prevention of the same by Narada, the descent of the Pandavas from Gandhamadana, the seizure of Bhima in the forest by a mighty serpent huge as the mountain, his release from the coils of the snake, upon Yudhishthira's answering certain questions, the return of the Pandavas to the Kanyaka woods. Here is described the reappearance of Vasudeva to see the mighty sons of Pandu, the arrival of Markandeya, and various recitals. The history of the son of Vena recited by the great Rishi, the stories of Saraswati and the Rishi Takai. After these is the story of Matsya, other old stories recited by Markandeya, the stories of Indradyumna and Dundhumara, then the history of the chaste wife, the history of Angira, the meeting and conversation of Draupadi and Satyabhama, the return of the Pandavas to the forest of Dwaita, then the procession to see the Goths and the captivity of Duryodhana, and when the wretch was being carried off, his rescue by Arjuna. Here is Yudhishthira's dream of the deer, then the re-entry of the Pandavas into the Kanyaka forest. Here also is the long story of Radronika. Here also is recited the story of Devasa, then the abduction by Jayadratha of Draupadi from the asylum, the pursuit of the ravisher by Bhima swift as the air, and the ill-shaving of Jayadratha's crown at Bhima's hand. Here is the long history of Rama, in which is shown how Rama by his power slew Ravana in battle. Here also is narrated the story of Savitri, then Karna's deprivation by Indra of his earrings, then the presentation to Karna by the gratified Indra of a Sakti missile weapon, which had the virtue of killing only one person against whom it might be hurled, then the story called Ranya, in which Dharma, the god of justice, gave advice to his son, Yudhishthira, in which, besides, is recited how the Pandavas, after having obtained a boon, went towards the west. These are all included in the third parva called Ranyaka, consisting of 269 sections. The number of slokas is 11,664. The extensive parva that comes next is called Vairata. The Pandavas arriving at the dominions of Vairata saw in a cemetery on the outskirts of the city a large charmi tree whereon they kept their weapons. Here hath been recited their entry into the city and their stay there in disguise. Then the slaying by Bhima of the wicked Kikakahu, senseless with lust, had sought Draupadi, the appointment by Prince Duryodhana of clever spies, and their dispatch to all sides for tracing the Pandavas. The failure of these to discover the mighty sons of Pandu, the first seizure of Vairata's kind by the Trigartas, and the terrific battle that ensued, the capture of Vairata by the enemy and his rescue by Bhimasena, the release also of the kind by the Pandava, Bhima, the seizure of Vairata's kind again by the Kuras, the defeat in battle of all the Kuras by the single-handed Arjuna, the release of the king's kind, the bestowal by Vairata of his daughter Udara for Arjuna's acceptance on behalf of his son by Subhadra, Abhimanyu, the destroyer of foes. These are the contents of the extensive fourth parva, the Vairata. The great Rishi Vyasa composed in these 67 sections. The number of slokas is 2,050. Listen then to the contents of the fifth parva, which must be known as Udyoga. While the Pandavas, desirous of victory, were residing in the place called Papithya, Duryodhana and Arjuna both went at the same time to Vasudeva and said, "You should render us assistance in this war." The High Sult Krishna, upon these words being uttered, replied, O ye first of men, a counsellor in myself who will not fight, and one Akshowini of truth. Which of these shall I give to which of you? Blind to his own interests, the foolish Duryodhana asked for the truth, while Arjuna solicited Krishna as an unfighting counsellor. Then is described how, when the king of Madra was coming to the assistance of the Pandavas, Duryodhana, having received him on the way by presents and hospitality, induced him to grant a boon and then solicited his assistance in battle. Kaltana, having passed his word to Duryodhana, went to the Pandavas and consoled them by reciting the history of Indra's victory over Dhritarashtra. Then comes the dispatch by the Pandavas of their Purohita priest to the Kauravas. Then is described how King Dhritarashtra of great prowess, having heard the word of the Purohita of the Pandavas and the story of Indra's victory, decided upon sending his Purohita and ultimately dispatched Sanjaya as envoy to the Pandavas from desire for peace. Here hath been described the sleeplessness of Dhritarashtra from anxiety upon hearing all about the Pandavas and their friends, Vasudeva and others. It was on this occasion that Vidura addressed to the wise king Dhritarashtra various counsels that were full of wisdom. It was here also that Sanat Sujata recited to the anxious and sorrowing monarch the excellent truths of spiritual philosophy. On the next morning, Sanjaya spoke in the court of the king of the identity of Vasudeva and Arjuna. It was then that the illustrious Krishna, moved by kindness and a desire for peace, went himself to the Kaurava capital, Hastinapura, for bringing about peace. Then came the rejection by Prince Duryodhana of the embassy of Krishna, who had come to solicit peace for the benefit of both parties. Here hath been recited the story of Dambodhava, then the story of the High Sult Matulai's search for a husband for his daughter, then the history of the great sage Galava, then the story of the training and discipline of the son of Baidula, then the exhibition by Krishna before the assembled Rajas of his yoga powers upon learning the evil counsels of Duryodhana and Karna, then Krishna's taking Karna in his chariot and his tendering to him of advice, and Karna's rejection of the same from pride. Then the return of Krishna, the chastiser of enemies, from Hastinapura to Apaplavya, and his narration to the Pandavas of all that had happened. It was then that those oppressors of foes, the Pandavas, having heard all and consulted properly with each other, made every preparation for war. Then comes the march from Hastinapura, for battle, of foot soldiers, horses, charioteers and elephants. Then the tale of the troops by both parties. Then the dispatch by Prince Duryodhana of Aluka as envoy to the Pandavas on the day previous to the battle. Then the tale of charioteers of different classes. Then the story of Amba. These all have been described in the fifth father called Udyoga of the Brata, abounding with incidents appertaining to war and peace. O.E. Pathetic. The great Vyasa hath composed 186 sections in this part. The number of slokas also composed in this by the great Rishi is 6,690. Then is recited the Bhishma Parva replete with wonderful incidents. In this hath been narrated by Sanjaya the formation of the region known as Jambu. Here hath been described the great depression of Yudhishthira's army, and also a fierce fight for 10 successive days. In this the High Sult Vasudeva, by reasons based on the philosophy of final release, drove away Arjuna's compunctions springing from the latter's regard for his kindred, whom he was on the evil slayer. In this the magnanimous Krishna, attentive to the welfare of Yudhishthira, seeing the loss inflicted on the Pandava arm, descended swiftly from his chariot himself and ran with dauntless breast, his driving whip in hand, to effect the death of Bhishma. In this, Krishna was so smote with piercing words Arjuna, the bearer of the Gandhava and foremost in battle among all wielders of weapons. In this, the foremost of bowmen, Arjuna, placing the Kandin before him and piercing Bhishma with his sharpest arrows, felled him from his chariot. In this, Bhishma lay stretched on his bed of arrows. This extensive parva is known as the sixth in the Bharata. In this have been composed 117 sections. The number of slokas is 5,884 as told by Vyasa conversant with the Vedas. Then is recited the wonderful parva called Drona, full of incidents. First comes the installation in the command of the army of the great instructor in arms, Drona. Then the vow made by that great master of weapons of seizing the wise Yudhishthira in battle to please Duryodhana. Then the retreat of Arjuna from the field before the Sansaptakas. Then the overthrow by the Jackalites of the second Indra in the field, with the elephant Supritika by Arjuna. Then the death of Abhimanyu in his teens, alone and unsupported, at the hands of many Maharatha's, including Jayadratha. Then after the death of Abhimanyu, the destruction by Arjuna, in battle of 7 Akshayinis of troops, and then of Jayadratha, then the entry, by Bhima of mighty arms and by that foremost of warriors in chariot, Satyaki, into the core of ranks, impenetrable even to the gods, in search of Arjuna, in obedience to the orders of Yudhishthira, and the destruction of the remnant of the Sansaptakas. In the Drona Parva is the death of Alnambashaw, of Sarutani, of Jalasundar, of Shimadatta, of Virata, of the great warrior in chariot Drupada, of Gatotkacha and others. In this Parva, as Wataman, excited beyond measure at the fall of his father in battle, discharged the terrible weapon Narayana. Then the glory of Rudra in connection with the burning of the 3 cities. Then the arrival of Vyasa and recital by him of the glory of Krishna and Arjuna. This is the great 7th Parva of the Bharata, in which all the heroic chiefs and princes mentioned was sent to their account. The number of sections in this is 170. The number of slokas as composed in the Drona Parva by Rishi Vyasa, the son of Parasara and the possessor of true knowledge after much meditation, is 8,909. Then comes the most wonderful Parva called Karna. In this is narrated the appointment of the wise king of Madra as Karna's charioteer. Then the history of the fall of the Asura Tripura. Then the application to each other by Karna and Salya of harsh words on their setting out for the field. Then the story of the swan and the crow recited in insulting allusion. Then the death of Pandya at the hands of the high Sudas Vataman. Then the death of Dandasa. Then that of Dada. Then Yudhishthira's imminent risk in single combat with Karna in the presence of all their warriors. Then the mutual wrath of Yudhishthira and Arjuna. Then Krishna's pacification of Arjuna. In this Parva, Bhima, in fulfillment of his vow, having ripped open Dusasna's breast in battle, drank the blood of his heart. Then Arjuna slew the great Karna in single combat. Readers of the Bharata call this 8th Parva. The number of sections in this is 69 and the number of slokas is 4,962. Then hath been recited the wonderful Parva called Salya. After all the great warriors had been slain, the king of Madra became the leader of the Kaurava army. The encounters one after another of charioteers have been here described. Then comes the fall of the great Salya at the hands of Yudhishthira, the just. Here also is the death of Sakuni in battle at the hands of Sahadeva. Upon only a small remnant of the troops remaining alive after the immense slaughter, Duryodhana went to the lake and creating for himself room within its waters, lay stretched there for some time. Then is narrated the receipt of this intelligence by Bhima from the fowlers. Then is narrated how, moved by the insulting speeches of the intelligent Yudhishthira, Duryodhana, ever unable to bear affronts, came out of the waters. Then comes the encounter with clubs between Duryodhana and Bhima. Then the arrival, at the time of such encounter, of Balarama, Then is described the sacredness of the Saraswati. Then the progress of the encounter with clubs. Then the fracture of Duryodhana's thighs in battle by Bhima with a terrific hurl of his mace. These all have been described in the wonderful 9th Parva. In this the number of sections is 59 and the number of slokas composed by the great Vyasa, the spreader of the fame of the Kauravas, is 3,220. Then shall I describe the Parva called Sauptika of frightful incidents. On the Pandavas having gone away, the mighty charioteers, Kritavama, and the son of Drona, came to the field of battle in the evening, and they saw King Duryodhana lying on the ground, his thighs broken, and himself covered with blood. Then the great charioteers, the son of Drona, of Karagava, vowed, without killing all the Panchalas, including Drishtadyumna, and the Pandavas also with all their allies, I will not take off armor. Having spoken those words, the 3 warriors leaving Duryodhana's side entered the great forest just as the sun was setting. While sitting under a large banyan tree in the night, they saw an owl killing numerous crows one after another. At the sight of this, Aswatthama, his heart full of rage at the thought of his father's fate, resolved to slay the slumbering Panchalas. And wending to the gate of the camp, he saw there a Rakshasa of frightful visage, his head reaching to the very heavens, guarding the entrance. And seeing that Rakshasa obstructing all his weapons, the son of Drona speedily pacified by worship the three-eyed Rudra. And then accompanied by Kritavaman and Gripa, he slew all the sons of Draupadi, all the Panchalas with Drishtadyumna and others, together with their relatives, slumbering unsuspectingly in the night. All perished on that fatal night except the 5 Pandavas and the great warrior Satyaki. Those escaped owing to Krishna's presence. Then the charioteer of Drishtadyumna brought to the Pandavas intelligence of the slaughter of the slumbering Panchalas by the son of Drona. Then Draupadi, distressed at the death of her sons and brothers and further sat before her lords, resolved to kill herself by fasting. Then Bhima of terrible prowess, moved by the words of Draupadi, resolved to please her, and speedily taking up his mace followed in wrath the son of his preceptor in arms, the son of Drona, from fear of Bhimasena and impelled by the fates and moved also by anger discharged a celestial weapon saying, "This is for the destruction of all the Pandavas." Then Krishna said, "This shall not be," neutralized as Aswatthama's speech. Then Arjuna neutralized that weapon by one of his own. Seeing the wicked Aswatthama's destructive intentions, Vaipayana and Krishna pronounced curses on him, which the latter returned. Pandava then deprived the mighty warrior in chariot Aswatthama of the jewel on his head, and became exceedingly glad, and, boastful of their success, made a present of it to the sorrowing Draupadi. Thus the 10th Parva, called Sauptika, is recited. The great Vyasa hath composed this in 18 sections. The number of slokas also composed in this by the great reciter of sacred truths is 870. In this Parva has been put together by the great Rishi the 2 Parvas called Sauptika and Aishika. After this hath been recited the highly pathetic Parva called Stri, Dhritarashtra of prophetic eye, afflicted at the death of his children, and moved by enmity towards Bhima, broke into pieces a statue of Hardai and deftly placed before him by Krishna, a substitute of Bhima. Then Vidura, removing the distress, Dhritarashtra's affection for worldly things by reasons pointing to final release, consoled that wise monarch. Then hath been described the wending of the distressed Dhritarashtra accompanied by the lady of his house to the field of battle of the Kauravas. Here follow the pathetic wailing of the wives of the slain heroes, then the wrath of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra and their loss of consciousness. Then the Kshatriya ladies saw those heroes come their unreturning sons, brothers, and furthers come lying dead on the field. Then the pacification by Krishna of the rock of Gandhari, distressed at the death of her sons and grandsons. Then the cremation of the bodies of the deceased Rajas with due rites by that monarch, Yudhishthira, of great wisdom and the foremost also of all virtuous men. Then upon the presentation of water of the manes of the deceased princes having commenced, the story of Kunti's acknowledgement of Karna as her son born in secret. Those have all been described by the great Rishi Vyasa in the highly pathetic 11th Parva. Its perusal moveth every feeling heart with sorrow and even draws tears from the eyes. The number of sections composed is 27. The number of slokas is 775. 12. The number cometh the Sanskrit, which increaseth the understanding and in which is related the despondency of Yudhishthira from his having slain his fathers, brothers, sons, paternal uncles and matrimonial relations. In this Parva is described how from his bed of arrows Bhishma expounded various systems of duties with the study of kings desirous of knowledge. This Parva expounded the duties relative to emergencies, with full indications of time and reason. By understanding these, a person attaineth to consummate knowledge. The mysteries also of final emancipation being expatiated upon. This is the 12th Parva, the favorite of the wise. It consists of 339 sections and contains 14,732 slokas. Next in order is the excellent Tenu Sasana Parva. In it is described how Yudhishthira, the king of the period, was reconciled to himself on hearing the exposition of duties by Bhishma, the son of Bhagrati. This Parva treats of rules in detail and of Dharma and Artha, then the rules of charity and its merits, then the qualifications of donis, and the supreme right regarding gifts. This Parva also describes the ceremonials of individual duty, the rules of conduct and the matchless merit of truth. This Parva showeth the great merit of Brahmanas and Kali, and unravelleth the mysteries of duties in relation to time and place. These are embodied in the excellent Parva called Anusasana of varied incidents. In this hath been described the ascension of Bhishma to heaven. This is the 13th Parva, which hath laid down accurately the various duties of men. The number of sections in this is 146. The number of slokas is 8,000. Then comes the 14th Parva as Vaindika. In this is the excellent story of Samvata and Maruta. Then is described the discovery by the Pandavas of golden treasuries, and then the birth of Parikshit, who was revived by Krishna after having been burnt by the celestial weapon of Aswatthama. The battles of Arjuna, the son of Pandu, while following the sacrificial horse let loose, with various princes who in wrath seized it. Then is shown the great risk of Arjuna in his encounter with Vabruvahana, the son of Chitrangada, by Arjuna, the appointed daughter of the chief of Manipura. Then the story of the monks during the performance of the horse sacrifice. This is the most wonderful Parva called as Vaindika. The number of sections is 103. The number of slokas composed in this by Vyasa of true knowledge is 3,320. Then comes the 15th Parva called as Ramvisika. In this, Dhritarashtra, abdicating the kingdom and accompanied by Gandhari and Vijaya, went to the woods. Seeing this, the virtuous Prithu also, ever engaged in cherishing her superiors, leaving the court of her sons, followed the old couple. In this is described the wonderful meeting through the kindness of Vyasa of the king, Dhritarashtra, with the spirits of his slain children, grandchildren, and other princes, returned from the other world. Then the monarch, abandoning his sorrows, acquired with his wife the highest fruit of his meritorious actions. In this Parva, Vidura, after having leaned on virtue all his life, attained to the most meritorious state. The learned son of Gavalgana, Sanjaya, also of passions under full control, and the foremost of ministers, attained, in the Parva, to the blessed state. In this, Yudhishthira that just met Narada and heard from him about the extinction of the race of Vrishnis. This is the very wonderful Parva called Asramvisika. The number of sections in this is 42, and the number of slokas composed by Vyasa cognizant of truth is 1506. After this, comes the Maushala of painful incidents. In this, those lion-hearted heroes of the race of Vrishni, with the scars of many a field on their bodies, oppressed with the curse of a Brahmana, while deprived of reason from drink, impelled by the fates, slew each other on the shores of the salt sea with the areca grass which, in their hands, became invested with the fatal attributes of the thunder. In this, both Balarama and Kusava, Krishna, after causing the extermination of their race, their hour having come, themselves did not rise superior to the sway of all-destroying time. In this, Arjuna, the foremost among men, going to Dwaraka, and seeing the city destitute of the Vrishnis, was much affected and became exceedingly sorry. Then after the funeral of his maternal uncle Vasudeva, the foremost among the Vrishnis, he saw the heroes of the Yadu race lying stretched in death on the spot where they had been drinking. He then caused the cremation of the bodies of the illustrious Krishna and Balarama and of the principal members of the Vrishni race. Then, as he was journeying from Dwaraka with the women and children, the old and the decrepit, the remnants of the Yadu race, he was met on the way by a heavy calamity. He witnessed also the disgrace of his bow Gandiva and the unpropitiousness of his celestial weapons. Seeing all this, Arjuna became despondent and, pursuant to Vyasa's advice, went to Yudhishthira and solicited permission to adopt the sannyasa mode of life. This is the 16th Parva called Maushala. The number of sections is 8 and the number of slokas composed by Vyasa cognizant of truth is 320. The next is Mahaprasthanika, the 17th Parva. In this, those foremost among men, the Pandavas abdicating their kingdom, went with Draupadi on their great journey called Mahaprasthana. In this, they came across Agni, having arrived on the shore of the Sea of Red Waters. In this, asked by Agni himself, Arjuna worshipped him duly, returned to him the excellent celestial bow called Gandiva. In this, leaving his brothers who dropped one after another and Draupadi also, Yudhishthira went on his journey without once looking back on them. This the 17th Parva is called Mahaprasthanika. The number of sections in this is 3. The number of slokas also composed by Vyasa cognizant of truth is 320. The Parva that comes after this, you must know, is the extraordinary one called Sphaga of celestial incidents. Then seeing the celestial car come to take him, Yudhishthira, moved by kindness towards the dog that accompanied him, refused to ascend it without his companion. Observing the illustrious Yudhishthira's steady adherence to virtue, Dharma, the god of justice, abandoning his canine form, showed himself to the king. Then Yudhishthira, ascending to heaven, felt much pain. The celestial messenger showed him hell by an act of deception. Then Yudhishthira, the soul of justice, heard the heart-rending lamentations of his brothers abiding in that region under the discipline of Yama. Then Dharma and Indra showed Yudhishthira the region appointed for sinners. Then Yudhishthira, after leaving the human body by a plunge in the celestial Ganges, attained to that region which his acts merited, and began to live in joy, respected by Indra and all other gods. This is the 18th Parva as narrated by the illustrious Vyasa. The number of slokas composed, O ascetics, by the great Rishi in this is 209. The above are the contents of the 18 Parvas. In the appendix, Gita, are the Harivansa and the Vaivashaya. The number of slokas contained in the Harivansa is 12,000. These are the contents of the section called Bhavasangraha. Soti continued, 18 Akshauhinis of troops came together for battle. The encounter that ensued was terrible and lasted for 18 days. He who knows the 4 Vedas with all the Angas and Upanishads, but does not know this history, Bharata, cannot be regarded as wise. Vyasa, of immeasurable intelligence, has spoken of the Mahabharata as a treatise on Artha, on Dharma, and on Karma. Those who have listened to his history can never bear to listen to others, as, indeed, they who have listened to the sweet voice of the male kokla can never hear the dissonance of the crow's cawing. As the formation of the 3 worlds proceedeth from the 5 elements, so do the inspirations of all poets proceed from this excellent composition. O ye Brahman, as the 4 kinds of creatures, viviparous, born of hot moisture and vegetables, are dependent on space for their existence, so the pranas depend upon this history. As all the senses depend for their exercise upon the various modifications of the mind, so do all acts, ceremonials, and moral qualities depend upon this treatise. There is not a story current in the world that doth depend on this history, even as body upon the food it taketh. All poets cherish the Bharata even as servants desirous of preferment always attend upon masters of good lineage. Even as the blessed domestic Asrama can never be surpassed by the 3 other Asramas, modes of life, so no poets can surpass this poem. Ye ascetics, shake off all inaction. Let your hearts be fixed on virtue, for virtue is the one only friend of him that has gone to the other world. Even the most intelligent by cherishing wealth and wives can never make these their own, nor are these possessions lasting. The Bharata uttered by the lips of Advaitayana is without a parallel. It is virtue itself and sacred. It destroyeth sin and produceth good. He that listeneth to it while it is being recited hath no need of a bath in the sacred waters of Pushkara. A Brahmana, whatever sins he may commit during the day through his senses, is freed from them all by reading the Bharata in the evening. Whatever sins he may commit also in the night by deeds, words, or mind, he is freed from them all by reading Bharata in the first twilight, morning. He that giveth 100 kine with horns mounted with gold to a Brahmana well posted up in the Vedas and all branches of learning, and he that daily listeneth to the sacred narrations of the Bharata, acquireth equal merit. As the wide ocean is easily passable by men having ships, so is this extensive history of great excellence and deep import with the help of this chapter called Bhavasangraha. Thus endeth the section called Bhavasangraha of the Adi Parva of the blessed Mahabharata. Section 3. Porshaya Parva. Soti said, Janamejaya, the son of Parikshit, was, with his brothers, attending his long sacrifice on the plains of Kurukshetra. His brothers were 3, Srutasena, Ugrasena, and Bhimasena. And as they were sitting at the sacrifice, there arrived at the spot an offspring of Sarima, the celestial bitch. And belabored by the brothers of Janamejaya, he ran away to his mother, crying in pain. And his mother, seeing him crying exceedingly, asked him, Why criest thou so? Who hath beaten thee? And being thus questioned, he said unto his mother, I have been belabored by the brothers of Janamejaya. And his mother replied, Thou hast committed some fault for which hast thou been beaten. He answered, I have not committed any fault. I have not touched the sacrificial butter with my tongue, nor have I even cast a look upon it. His mother Saroma, hearing this, and much distressed at the affliction of her son, went to the place where Janamejaya with his brothers was at his long extending sacrifice. And she addressed Janamejaya in anger, saying, This my son hath committed no fault. He hath not looked upon your sacrificial butter, and nor hath he touched it with his tongue. Wherefore hath he been beaten? They said not a word in reply, whereupon she said, As ye have beaten my son who hath committed no fault, Therefore shall evil come upon ye, when ye least expect it. Janimjaya, thus addressed by the celestial bitch, Sarima, became exceedingly alarmed and dejected, and after the sacrifice was concluded returned to Hastinapura, and began to take great pains in searching for a Purohita who could, by procuring absolution for his sin, neutralize the effect of the curse. One day Janimjaya, the son of Parikshit, while hunting, observed in a particular part of his dominions hermitage where dwelt a certain rishi of fame, Srutasrava. He had a son named Somasrava, deeply engaged in ascetic devotions. Being desirous of appointing the son of the rishi as his Purohita, Janimjaya, the son of Parikshit, saluted the rishi and addressed him, saying, "O possessor of the 6 attributes, let this thy son be my Purohita." The rishi thus addressed, answered Janimjaya, "O Janimjaya, this my son, deep in ascetic devotions, accomplished in the study of the Vedas, and endued with the full force of my asceticism, is born of the womb of a she-snake that had drunk my vital fluid. He is able to absolve thee from all offences save those committed against Mahadeva. But he hath one particular habit, viz. He would grant to any Brahmana whatever might be begged of him. If thou canst put up with it, then thou take him." Janimjaya thus addressed replied to the rishi, "It shall be even so." And accepting him for his Purohita, he returned to his capital, and he then addressed his brothers, saying, "This is the person I have chosen for my spiritual master. Whatsoever he may say must be complied with by you without examination." And his brothers did as they were directed. And giving these directions to his brothers, the king marched towards Takshashila and brought that country under his authority. About this time there was a rishi, Aodadamya by name. And Aodadamya had 3 disciples, Apimanyu, Aruni, and Veda. And the rishi bade one of these disciples, Aruni of Panchala, to go and stop up a breach in the watercourse of a certain field. And Aruni of Panchala, thus ordered by his preceptor, repaired to the spot. And having gone there he saw that he could not stop up the breach in the watercourse by ordinary means, and he was distressed because he could not do his preceptor's bidding. But at length he saw a way and said, "Well, I will do it in this way." He then went down into the breach and lay down himself in, and the water was thus confined. And some time after, the preceptor Aodadamya asked his other disciples where Aruni of Panchala was. And they answered, "Sir, he hath been sent by yourself, saying, 'Go, stop up the breach in the watercourse of the field.'" Thus reminded, Damya, addressing his pupils, said, "Then let us all go to the place where he is." And having arrived there, he shouted, "Ho, Aruni of Panchala! Where art thou? Come hither, my child." And Aruni, hearing the voice of his preceptor, speedily came out.
Now what happened? I'm locked up. Just when I was getting into it. Gotta check my Alright, so something's going on with the Alright, let's see. Maybe that's fixed. Good check that shot.
Damia had 3 disciples, Abhimanyu, Aruni, and Veda. And the Rishi bade one of these disciples, Aruni of Panchala, to go and stop up a breach in the watercourse of a certain field. And Aruni of Panchala, thus ordered by his preceptor, repaired to the spot. And having gone there he saw that he could not stop up the breach in the watercourse by ordinary means. And he was distressed because he could not do his preceptor's bidding. But at length he saw a way and said, "Well, I will do it in this way." He then went down into the breach and lay down himself there, and the water was thus confined. And some time after, the preceptor Aodadamya asked his other disciples where Aruni of Panchala was. And they answered, "Sir, he hath been sent by yourself, saying, 'Go, stop up the breach in the watercourse of the field.'" Thus reminded, Damya, addressing his pupils, said, "Then let us all go to the place where he is." And having arrived there, he shouted, "Ho, Aruni of Panchala, where art thou? Come hither, my child." And Aruni, hearing the voice of his preceptor, speedily came out of the watercourse and stood before his preceptor. And addressing the latter, Aruni said, "Here I am in the breach of the watercourse. Not having been able to devise any other means, I entered myself for the purpose of preventing the water running out. It is only upon hearing thy voice that, having left it and allowed the waters to escape, I have stood before thee. I salute thee, Master, tell me what I have to do." The preceptor, thus addressed, replied, "Because in getting up from the ditch thou hast opened the watercourse, thenceforth shalt thou be called Judalaka as a mark of thy preceptor's favour. And because my words have been obeyed by thee, thou shalt obtain good fortune. And all the Vedas shall shine in thee, and all the Dharmasastras also." And Aruni, thus addressed by his preceptor, went to the country after his heart. The name of another of Aodadamya's disciples was Abhimanyu, and Damya appointed him, saying, "Go, my child, Abhimanyu, look after the kine." And according to his preceptor's orders, he went to tend the kine. And having watched them all day, he returned in the evening to his preceptor's house, and standing before him he saluted him respectfully. And his preceptor, seeing him in good condition of body, asked him, "Abhimanyu, my child, upon what dost thou support thyself? Thou art exceedingly glum." And he answered, "Sir, I support myself by begging." And his preceptor said, "What is obtained in alms should not be used by thee without offering it to me." And Abhimanyu, thus told, went away, and having obtained alms, he offered the same to his preceptor, and his preceptor took from him even the whole. And Abhimanyu, thus treated, went to attend the cattle, and having watched them all day, he returned in the evening to his preceptor's abode. And he stood before his preceptor and saluted him with respect. And his preceptor, perceiving that he still continued to be of good condition of body, said unto him, Epimeneus, my child, I take from thee even the whole of what thou obtainest in alms, without leaving anything for thee. How then dost thou, at present, contrive to support thyself? And Epimeneus said unto his preceptor, Sir, having made over to you all that I obtain in alms, I go a-begging a second time for supporting myself. And his preceptor then replied, This is not the way in which thou shouldst obey the preceptor. By this thou art diminishing the support of others that live by begging. Truly having supported thyself so, thou hast proved thyself covetous. And Epimeneus, having signified his assent to all that his preceptor said, went away to attend the cattle. And having watched them all day, he returned to his preceptor's house. And he stood before his preceptor and saluted him respectfully. And his preceptor, observing that he was still fat, said again unto him, Epimeneus, my child, I take from thee all thou obtainest in alms, and thou dost not go a-begging a second time, and yet art thou in healthy condition. How dost thou support thyself? And Epimeneus, thus questioned, answered, Sir, I now live upon the milk of these cows. And his preceptor thereupon told him, It is not lawful for thee to appropriate the milk without having first obtained my consent. And Epimeneus, having assented to the justice of these observations, went away to tend the kine. And when he returned to his preceptor's abode, he stood before him and saluted him as usual. And his preceptor, seeing that he was still fat, said, Epimeneus, my child, thou eatest no longer of alms, nor dost thou go a-begging a second time, not even drinkest of the milk, yet art thou fat. By what means dost thou contrive to live now? And Epimeneus replied, Sir, I now sip the froth that these calves throw out, while sucking their mother's teeth. And the preceptor said, These generous calves, I suppose, out of compassion for thee, throw out large quantities of froth. Wouldst thou stand in the way of their full meals by acting as thou hast done? Know that it is unlawful for thee to drink the froth. And Epimeneus, having signified his assent to this, went as before to tend the cows. And restrained by his preceptor, he feedeth not on alms, nor hath he anything else to eat. He drinketh not of the milk, nor tasteth he of the froth. And Epimeneus, one day, oppressed by hunger, when in a forest, ate of the leaves of the arca, Asclepias giganta, and his eyes being affected by the pungent, acrimonious, crude, and saline properties of the leaves which he had eaten, he became blind. And as he was crawling about, he fell into a pit. And upon his not returning that day when the sun was sinking down behind the summit of the western mountains, the preceptor observed to his disciples that Epimeneus was not yet come, and they told him that he had gone out with the cattle. The preceptor then said, Epimeneus, being restrained by me from the use of everything, is, of course, and therefore doth not come home until it be late. Let us then go in search of him. And having said this, he went with his disciples into the forest and began to shout, saying, O Epimeneus, where art thou? And Epimeneus, hearing his preceptor's voice, answered in a loud tone, Here I am at the bottom of a well. And his preceptor asked him how he happened to be there. And Epimeneus replied, Having eaten of the leaves of the arca plant, I became blind, and so have I fallen into this well. And his preceptor thereupon told him, Glorify the twin Aswin, the joint physicians of the gods, and they will restore thee thy sight. And Epimeneus, thus directed by his preceptor, began to glorify the twin Aswin in the following words of the Rig Veda. Ye have existed before the creation, ye firstborn beings, ye are displayed in this wondrous universe of 5 elements. I desire to obtain you by the help of the knowledge derived from hearing, and of meditation, for ye are infinite. Ye are the course itself of nature and intelligent soul that pervades that course. Ye are birds of beauteous feathers perched on the body that is like to a tree. Ye are without the three common attributes of every soul. Ye are incomparable. Ye, through your spirit in every created thing, pervade the universe. Ye are golden eagles. Ye are the essence into which all things disappear. Ye are free from error and know no deterioration. Ye are of beauteous beaks that would not unjustly strike and are victorious in every encounter. Ye certainly prevail over time. Having created the sun, ye weave the wondrous cloth of the year by means of the white thread of the day and the black thread of the night. And with the cloth so woven, ye have established two courses of action appertaining respectively to the Devas and the Pythras. The bird of life seized by time, which represents the strength of the infinite soul, ye set free for delivering her unto great happiness. They that are in deep ignorance, as long as they are under delusions of their senses, suppose you, who are independent of the attributes of matter, to be gifted with 360 cows represented by 360 days produce one calf between them, which is the year. That calf is the creator and destroyer of all. Seekers of truth following different routes, draw the milk of true knowledge with its help. Ye Aswin, ye are the creators of that calf. The year is but the nave of a wheel to which is attached 720 spokes representing as many days and nights. The circumference of this wheel represented by 12 months is without end. This wheel is full of delusions and knows no deterioration. It affects all creatures whether to this or of the other worlds. Ye Aswin, this wheel of time is set in motion by you. The wheel of time, as represented by the year, has a nave represented by the 6 seasons. The number of spokes attached to that nave is 12, as represented by the 12 signs of the zodiac. This wheel of time manifests the fruits of the acts of all things. The presiding deities of time abide in that wheel. Subject as I am to its distressful influence, ye Aswin, liberate me from that wheel of time. Ye Aswin, ye are this universe of 5 elements. Ye are the objects that are enjoyed in this and in the other world. Make me independent of the 5 elements. And though ye are the supreme Brahma, yet ye move over the earth in forms enjoying the delights that the senses afford. In the beginning, ye created the 10 points of the universe. Then have ye placed the sun and the sky above. The rishis, according to the course of the same sun, perform their sacrifices, and the gods and men, according to what hath been appointed for them, perform their sacrifices, also enjoying the fruits of those acts. Mixing the 3 colors, ye have produced all the objects of sight. It is from these objects that the universe hath sprung, whereon the gods and men are engaged in their respective occupations, and, indeed, all creatures endued with life. Ye Aswin, I adore you. I also adore the sky, which is your handiwork. Ye are the ordainers of the fruits of all acts, from which even the gods are not free. Ye are yourselves free from the fruits of your acts. Ye are the parents of all. As males and females, it is ye that swallow the food which subsequently develops into the life-creating fluid and blood. The newborn infant sucks the teat of its mother. Indeed, it is ye that take the shape of the infant. Ye Aswin, grant me my sight to protect my life. The twin Aswin, thus invoked, appeared and said, We are satisfied. Here is a cake for thee. Take and eat it. And Abhimanyu, thus addressed, replied, Your words, O Aswin, have never proved untrue. But without first offering this cake to my preceptor, I dare not take it. And the Aswins thereupon told him, Formerly, thy preceptor had invoked us. We thereupon gave him a cake like this, and he took it without offering it to his master. Do thou do that which thy preceptor did. Thus addressed, Abhimanyu again said unto them, O Aswin, I crave your pardon. Without offering it to my preceptor, I dare not apply this cake. The Askwins then said, Oh, we are pleased with this devotion of thine to thy preceptor. Thy master's teeth are of black iron. Thine shall be of gold. Thou shalt be restored to sight, and shall have good fortune. Thus spoken by the Askwins, he recovered his sight, and having gone to his preceptor's presence, he saluted him and told him all. And his preceptor was well pleased with him, and said unto him, Thou shalt obtain prosperity, even as the Aswins have said. All the Vedas shall shine in thee, and all the Dharma Sastras. And this was the trial of Upamanyu. Then Veda, the other disciple of Ayodhya Dharma, was called. His preceptor once addressed him, saying, Veda, my child, tarry some time in my house and serve thy preceptor. It shall be to thy profit. And Veda, having signified his assent, tarried long in family of his preceptor, mindful of serving him. Like an ox under the burthens of his master, he bore heat and cold, hunger and thirst, at all times without murmur. And it was not long before his preceptor was satisfied. And as a consequence of that satisfaction, Veda obtained good fortune and universal knowledge. And this was the trial of Veda. And Veda, having received permission from his preceptor, and leaving the latter's residence after the completion of his studies, entered the domestic mode of life. And while living in his own house, he got 3 pupils. And he never told them to perform any work or to obey implicitly his own behests, for having himself experienced much woe while abiding in the family of his preceptor, he liked not to treat them with severity. After a certain time, Jananjaya and Porshai, both of the order of Kshatriyas, arriving at his residence, appointed the Brahmin, Veda, as their spiritual guide, Upadhyaya. And one day, while about to depart upon some business related to a sacrifice, he employed one of his disciples, Utanka, to take charge of his household. Utanka, said he, whatsoever should have to be done in my house, let it be done by thee without neglect. And having given these orders to Utanka, he went on his journey. So Utanka, always mindful of the injunction of his preceptor, took up his abode in the latter's house. And while Utanka was residing there, the females of his preceptor's house, having assembled, addressed him and said, O Utanka, thy mistress is in that season when connubial connection might be fruitful. The preceptor is absent. Then stand thou in his place and do the needful. And Utanka, thus addressed, said unto those women, It is not proper for me to do this at the bidding of women. I have not been enjoined by my preceptor to do aught that is improper. After a while, his preceptor returned from his journey. And his preceptor, having learnt all that had happened, became well pleased and, addressing Utanka, said, Utanka, my child, what favor shall I bestow on thee? I have been served by thee duly, therefore hath our friendship for each other increased. I therefore grant thee leave to depart. Go thou, and let thy wishes be accomplished. Utanka, thus addressed, replied, saying, Let me do something if you wish, for it hath been said, He who bestoweth instruction contrary to usage, and he who receiveth it contrary to usage, one of the two dieth, and enmity springeth up between the two doth die. Therefore, who have received thy leave to depart, and desireth of bringing thee some honorarium due to a preceptor. His master, upon hearing this, replied, Utanka, my child, wait a while. Sometime after, Utanka again addressed his preceptor, saying, Command me to bring that the honorarium which you desire. And his preceptor then said, My dear Utanka, thou hast often told me of your desire to bring something by way of acknowledgement for the instruction thou hast received. Go then in and ask thy mistress what thou art to bring, and bring thou that which she directs. And thus, directed by his preceptor, Utanka addressed his preceptress, saying, Madam, I have obtained my master's leave to go home. and I am desirous of bringing something agreeable to thee as honorarium for the instruction I have received, in order that I may not depart as his debtor. Therefore, please command me what I am to bring. Thus addressed, his preceptress replied, Go unto King Portia and beg of him the pair of earrings worn by his queen, and bring them hither. The 4th day hence is a sacred day, when I wish to appear before the Brahmin, who may dine at my house, decked with these earrings. Then accomplish this, O Utanka. If thou shouldst succeed, good fortune shall attend thee. If not, what good canst thou expect? Utanka thus commanded, shook his departure, and as he was passing along the road he saw a bull of extraordinary size and a man of uncommon stature mounted thereon. And that man addressed Utanka and said, Eat thou of the dung of this bull. Utanka, however, was unwilling to comply. The man said again, O Utanka, eat of it without scrutiny. Thy master ate of it before. And Utanka signified his assent, and ate of the bull and drank of the urine of that bull, and rose respectfully, and washing his hands and mouth went to where King Portia was. On arriving at the palace, Utanka saw Portia on his throne, and approaching him Utanka saluted the monarch by pronouncing blessings, and said, I am come as a petitioner to thee. And King Portia, having returned Utanka's salutations, said, Sir, what shall I do for thee? And Utanka said, I came to beg of thee a pair of earrings as a present to my preceptor. It behoveth thee to give me the earrings worn by the queen. King Portia replied, Go, Utanka, into the female apartments where the queen is and demand them of her. And Utanka went into the women's apartments. But as he could not discover the queen, he again addressed the king, saying, It is not proper that I should be treated by thee with feet. My queen is not in the private apartments, for I could not find her. The king thus addressed, considered for a while and replied, Recollect, sir, with attention whether thou art not in a state of defilement in consequence of contact with the impurities of a repast. My queen is a chaste wife and cannot be seen by anyone who is impure owing to contact with the leavings of a repast, nor doth she herself appear in sight of anyone who is defiled. Utanka, thus informed, reflected for a while and then said, Yes, it must be so. Having been in a hurry, I performed my ablutions after meal in a standing posture. King Portia then said, Here is a transgression. Purification is not properly effected by one in a standing posture, not by one while he is going along. And Utanka, having agreed to this, sat down with his face towards the east, and washed his face, hands, and feet thoroughly. And he then, without a noise, sipped thrice of water free from scum and froth, and not warm, and just sufficient to reach his stomach, and wiped his face twice. And he then touched with water the apertures of his organs, eyes, ears, etc. And having done all this, he once more entered the apartments of the women. And this time he saw the queen. And as the queen perceived him, she saluted him respectfully and said, Welcome, sir, command me what I have to do. And Utanka said unto her, It behoveth thee to give me those earrings of thine. I beg them as a present from my preceptor. And the queen, having been highly pleased with Utanka's conduct and considering that Utanka as an object of charity could not be passed over, took off her earrings and gave them to him. And she said, These earrings are very much sought after by Takshalka, the king of the serpents. Therefore shouldst thou carry them with the greatest care. And Utanka, being told this, said unto the queen, Lady, be under no apprehension. Takshalka, chief of the serpents, is not able to overtake me. And having said this, and taking leave of the queen, he went back into the presence of Portia, and said, Portia, I am gratified. Then Portia said to Utanka, A fit object of charity can only be had at long intervals. thou art a qualified guest. Therefore do I desire to perform a srada. Tarry thou a little. And Utanka replied, Yes, I will tarry, and beg that the clean provisions that are ready may be soon brought in. And the king, having signified his assent, entertained Utanka duly. And Utanka, seeing that the food placed before him had hair in it, and also that it was cold, thought it unclean. And he said unto Portia, Thou givest me food that is unclean, therefore shalt thou lose thy sight. And Portia in answer said, because dost thou impute uncleanliness to food that is clean, therefore shalt thou be without issue. And Utanka thereupon rejoined, It behoveth thee not, after having offered me unclean food, to curse me in return. Satisfy thyself by glutton. And Portia, seeing the food alleged to be unclean, satisfied himself of its uncleanliness. And Portia, having ascertained that the food was truly unclean, being cold and mixed with hair, prepared as it was by a woman with unbraided hair, began to pacify the Rishi Utanka, saying, Sir, the food placed before thee is cold, and doth contain hair, having been prepared without sufficient care. Therefore I pray thee pardon me. Let me not become blind. And Utanka answered, What I say must come to pass. Having become blind, thou mayst, however, recover the sight before long. Grant that thy curse also doth not take effect on me. And Portia said unto him, I am unable to revoke my curse, for my wrath even now hath not been effected. But thou knowest not this. For a Brahmana's heart is soft as new churn butter, even though his words bear a sharp-edged razor. It is otherwise in respect of these with Kshatriya. His words are soft as new churn butter, but his heart is like a sharp-edged tool. Such being the case, I am unable, because of the hardness of my heart, to neutralize my curse. Then go thou thy own way. To this Utanka made answer, I showed thee the uncleanliness of the food offered to me, and I was even now pacified by thee. Besides, saidest thou at first that because I imputed uncleanliness to food that was clean I should be without issue. But the food truly unclean, thy curse cannot affect me. Of this I am sure. And Utanka, having said this, departed with the earring. On the road Utanka perceived coming towards him a naked idle beggar, sometimes coming in view, sometimes disappearing. And Utanka put the earrings on the ground and went for water. In the meantime, the beggar came quickly to the spot, and taking up the earrings ran away. And Utanka, having completed his ablutions in water and purified himself, and having also reverently bowed down to the gods and his spiritual masters, pursued the thief with the utmost speed. And having with great difficulty overtaken him, he seized him by force. But at that instant the person ceased, lifting the form of a beggar and assuming his real form, viz., that of Takshaka, speedily entered a large hole open in the ground. And having got in, Takshaka proceeded to his own abode, the region of the serpents. Now, Utanka, recollecting the words of the queen, pursued the serpent, and began to dig open the hole with a stick, but was unable to make much progress. And Indra, beholding his distress, sent his thunderbolt, Vajra, to his assistance. Then the thunderbolt, entering the stick, enlarged that hole, and Utanka began to enter the hole after the thunderbolt. And having entered it, he beheld the region of the serpents infinite in extent, filled with hundreds of palaces and elegant mansions with turrets and domes and gateways, abounding with wonderful places for various games and entertainments. And Utanka then glorified the serpents by the following slokas. Ye serpents, subjects of King Airavata, splendid in battle and showering weapons in the field like lightning-charged clouds driven by the wind, handsome and of various forms and decked with many-colored earrings, ye children of Airavata, ye shine like the sun in the firmament. On the northern banks of the Ganges are many habitations of serpents. There I constantly adore the great serpents, who except Theravada would desire to move in the burning rays of the sun. When Dhritarashtra, Elvata's brother, goes out, 28,008 serpents follow him as his attendants. Ye who move near him, and ye who stay at a distance from him, I adore all of you that have Theravada for your elder brother. I adore thee also, to obtain the earrings, O Takshaka, who formerly dwelt in Kurukshetra and the forest of Kandava. Takshaka and his Varsana, ye are constant companions who dwell in Kurukshetra on the banks of the Ikshmati. I also adore the illustrious Srutasana, the younger brother of Takshaka, who resided at the holy place called Mahadima with a view to obtaining the chiefship of the serpents. The Brahmana Rishi Utanka, having saluted the chief serpents in this manner, obtained not, however, the earrings, as he thereupon became very thoughtful. And when he saw that he obtained not the earrings even though he had adored the serpents, he then looked about him and beheld two women at a loom weaving a piece of cloth with a fine shut, and in the loom were black and white threads. And he likewise saw a wheel with 12 spokes, turned by 6 boys. And he also saw a man with a handsome horse. And he began to address them the following mantras. This wheel, whose circumference is marked by 24 divisions representing as many loom changes, is furnished with 300 spokes. It is set in continual motion by 6 boys, the seasons. These damsels, representing universal nature, are weaving without intermission a cloth with threads black and white, and thereby ushering into existence the manifold worlds and the beings that inhabit them. Thou wielder of the thunder, the protector of the universe, the slayer of the true and Namachi, thou illustrious one who wearest the black cloth and displayest truth and untruth in the universe, thou who ownest for thy carrier the horse which was received from the depths of the ocean, and which is but another form of Agni, the god of fire, I bow to thee, thou supreme lord, thou lord of the 3 worlds, O Purandara. Then the man with the horse said unto Utanka, I am gratified by this thy adoration. What good shall I do to thee? And Utanka replied, even let the serpents be brought under my control. Then the man rejoined, blow into this horse. And Utanka blew into that horse. And from the horse thus blown into, there issued, from every aperture of his body, flames of fire with smoke, by which the region of the Nagas was about to be consumed. And Takshaka, surprised beyond measure and terrified by the heat of the fire, hastily came out of his abode, taking the earrings with him, and said unto Utanka, pray, sir, take back the earrings. And Utanka took them back. But Utanka, having recovered his earrings, thought, oh, this is the sacred day of my preceptress. I am at a distance. How can I, therefore, show my regard for her? And when Utanka was anxious about this, the man addressed him and said, ride this horse, Utanka, and he will in a moment carry thee to thy master's abode. And Utanka, having signified his assent, mounted the horse and presently reached his preceptor's house. And his preceptress that morning, after having bathed, was dressing her hair, sitting, thinking of uttering a curse on Utanka if he should not return within time. But, in the meantime, Utanka entered his preceptor's abode and paid his respects to his preceptress and presented her the earrings. Utanka, said she, thou hast arrived at the proper time at the proper place. Welcome, my child. Thou art innocent, and therefore I do not curse thee. Good fortune is even before thee. Let thy wishes be crowned with success. Then Utanka waited on his preceptor, and his preceptor said, thou art welcome. What hath occasioned thy long absence? And Utanka replied to his preceptor, sir, in the execution of this my business obstruction was offered by Takshaka, the king of serpents. Therefore I had to go to the region of the Nagas. There I saw 2 damsels sitting at a loom, weaving a fabric with black and white threads. pray, what is that? Then likewise I beheld a wheel with 12 spokes ceaselessly turned by 6 boys. What to doth that import? Who is also the man that I saw? And what the horse of extraordinary size likewise beheld by me? And when I was on the road, I also saw a bull with a man mounted thereon, by whom I was endearingly accosted thus, Eutanker, eat the dung of this bull, which was also eaten by thy master. So I ate of the dung of that bull according to his words, who also is he. Therefore, enlightened by thee, I desire to hear all about them. And his preceptor thus addressed said unto him, The 2 damsels thou hast seen are Darter and Varter, the black and white threads note night and day. The wheel of 12 spokes turned by the 6 boys signified the year, comprising 6 seasons. The man is Parjan, the deity of rain, and the horse is Agni, the god of fire. The bull that thou hast seen on the road is Eravata, the king of Elephas. The man mounted thereon is Indra, and the dung of the bull which was eaten by thee was Amrita. It was certainly for this last that thou hast not met with death in the region of the Nagas, and Indra, who is my friend, having been mercifully inclined, showed thee favor. It is for this that thou returnest safe, with the earrings about thee. Then, O thou amiable one, I give thee leave to depart. Thou shalt obtain good fortune. And Eudanka, having obtained his master's leave, moved by anger and resolved to avenge himself on Takshaka, proceeded towards Hastin Abra. That excellent Brahmana soon reached Hastin Abra, and Eutanka then waited on the king Janujaya, who had some time before returned victorious from Takshaka. And Eutanka saw the victorious monarch surrounded on all sides by his ministers. And he pronounced benedictions on him in a proper form. And Eutanka addressed the monarch at a proper moment, in speech of correct accent and melodious tone, saying, O thou the best of monarchs, how is it that thou spendest thy time like a child, when there is another matter that urgently demandeth thy attention? Soti said, the monarch Janujaya, thus ran, saluting that excellent Brahmana replied unto him, in cherishing these my subjects I do discharge the duty of my noble tribe. Say, what is thy business to be done by me, and which hath brought thee hither? The foremost of Brahmanas and distinguished beyond all the good deeds, thus addressed by the excellent monarch of large heart, replied unto him, O king, the business is thy own that demandeth thy attention, therefore do it, please. O thou king of kings, thy father was deprived of life by Takshaka, therefore do thou avenge thy father's death on that vile serpent. The time hath come, I think, for the act of vengeance ordained by the fates. Go then avenge the death of thy magnanimous father who, being bitten without cause by that vile serpent, was reduced to 5 elements even like a tree stricken by thunder. The wicked Takshaka, vilest of the serpent race, intoxicated with power, committed an unnecessary act when he bit the king, that godlike father, the protector of the race of royal saints. Wicked in his deeds, he even caused Kasyapa, the prince of physicians, to run back when he was coming for the relief of thy father. It behoveth thee to burn the wicked wretch in the blazing fire of a snake sacrifice. O king, give instant orders for the sacrifice. It is thus thou canst avenge the death of thy father. And a very great favor shall have also been shown to me. For by that malignant wretch, O virtuous prince, my business also was, on one occasion, obstructed, while proceeding on account of my preceptor. Soti continued, the monarch, having heard these words, was enraged with Takshaka. By the speech of Eutanka was inflamed the prince, even as the sacrificial fire with clarified butter. Moved by grief also, in the presence of Eutanka, the prince asked his ministers the particulars of his father's journey to the regions of the blessed. And when he heard all about the circumstances of his father's death from the lips of Eutanka, he was overcome with pain and sorrow. and thus endeth the section called Portia of the Adi Parva of the blessed Mahabharata. Section 4. Lomapava. Ugrasrava Soti, the son of Lomahashana, burst in the Puranas, while present in the forest of Naimishka, at the 12 years sacrifice of Sonaka, surnamed Kula Party, stood before the rishis in attendance. Having studied Puranas with meticulous devotion and thus being thoroughly acquainted with them, he addressed them with joined hands thus: I have graphically described to you the history of Utanka, which is one of the causes of King Jananjaya's snake sacrifice. What, revered sirs, do ye wish to hear now? What shall I relate to you? The holy men replied, O son of Lomahashana, we shall ask thee about what we are anxious to hear, and thou wilt recount the tales one by one. Sonaka, our revered master, is at present attending the apartment of the holy fire. He is acquainted with those divine stories which relate to the gods and asuras. He adequately knoweth the histories of men, serpents, and Gandavas. Further, O Soti, in this sacrifice that learned Brahmana is the chief. He is able, faithful to his vows, wise, a master of the Sastras and the Aranyaka, a speaker of truth, a lover of peace, a mortifier of the flesh, and an observer of the penances according to the authoritative decrees. He is respected by us all. It behoveth us therefore to wait for him. And when he is seated on his highly respected seat, thou wilt answer what the best of judges shall ask of thee. Soti said, Be it so. And when the high-suit master hath been seated, I shall narrate, questioned by him, sacred stories on a variety of subjects. After a while that excellent Brahmana, Sonaka, having duly finished all his duties, and having propitiated the gods with prayers and the manes with oblations of water, came back to the place of sacrifice, where with Soti seated before was the assembly of saints of rigid vows sitting at ease. And when Sonaka was seated in the midst of the Ritwiks and Sadhus, who were also in their seats, he spake as followeth. Section B. Lomapava continued. Sonaka said, Child, my father formerly read the whole of the Puranas, O son of Lomahashana, and the Bharata with Krishnadvapayana. Hast thou also made them by study? In those ancient records are chronicled interesting stories in the history of the first generations of the wise men, all of which we heard being rehearsed with thy sire. In the first place, I am desirous of hearing the history of the Riz of Brughat. Recount thou that history, we shall attentively listen to thee. Soti answered, By me hath been acquired all that was formerly studied by the high-souled Brahmanas, including Veds and Payana, and repeated by them. By me hath been acquired all that had been studied by my father. O descendant of the Brughat, attend then to so much as relative to the exalted race of Brughat, revered by Indra and all the gods, by the tribes of Rishis and Maraks, winds. O great Muni, I shall first properly recount the story of this family, as told in the Puranas. The great and blessed Saint Brughat, we are informed, was produced by the self-existing Brahma from the fire at the sacrifice of Varuna. And Brughat had a son, named Kayavana, whom he dearly loved. And to Kayavana was born a virtuous son called Pramati.
Somebody's
And
beeping me.
Pramati had a son named Uru by
I hear a beeping
Dhritachi,
noise.
the celestial dancer. And to Uru also by his wife Brahmanavara was born a son, whose name was Sunika. He was, O Sonaka, by great ancestor exceedingly virtuous in his ways. He was devoted to asceticism, of great reputation, proficient in law, and eminent among those having a knowledge of the Vedas. He was virtuous, truthful, and of well-regulated fare. Sonaka said, O son of Suta, I ask thee why the illustrious son of Brughat was named Kayavana. Do tell me all. Soti replied, Brughat had a wife named Puloma whom he dearly loved. She became big with child by Brughat. And one day while the virtuous continent Puloma was in that condition, Brugge, great among those that are true to their religion, leaving her at home, went out to perform his ablutions. It was then that the Rakshasa called Puloma came to Brugge's abode. And entering the Rishi's abode, the Rakshasa saw the wife of Brugge, irreproachable in everything. And seeing her he became filled with lust and lost his senses. The beautiful Puloma entertained the Rakshasa thus arrived, with roots and fruits of the forest. And the Rakshasa, who burnt with desire upon seeing her, became very much delighted and resolved, O good sage, to carry her away, who was so blameless in every respect. My design is accomplished, said the Rakshasa, and so seizing that beautiful matron, he carried her away. And, indeed, she of agreeable smiles, had been betrothed by her father himself to him, although the former subsequently bestowed her, according to due rites, on Brugge. O thou of the Brugge race, this wound rankled deep in the Rakshasa's mind, and he thought the present moment very opportune for carrying the lady away. And the Rakshasa saw the apartment in which the sacrificial fire was kept burning brightly. The Rakshasa then asked the flaming element, Tell me, O Agni, whose wife this woman rightfully is. Thou art the mouth of gods, therefore thou art bound to answer my question. This lady of superior complexion had been first accepted by me as wife, but her father subsequently bestowed her on the false Brugge. Tell me truly if this fair one can be regarded as the wife of Brugge, for having found her alone, I have resolved to take her away by force from the hermitage. My heart burneth with rage when I reflect that Brugge hath got possession of this woman of slender waist, first betrothed to me. Soti continued, in this manner the Rakshasa asked the flaming god of fire again and again whether the lady was Brugge's wife. And the god was afraid to return an answer. Thou, O god of fire, said he, residest constantly within every creature, as witness of her or his merits and demerits. O thou respected one, then answer my question truly. Has not Brugge appropriated her who was chosen by me as my wife? Thou shouldst declare truly whether, therefore, she is my wife by first choice. After thy answer as to whether she is the wife of Brugge, I will bear her away from this hermitage even in sight of thee. Therefore answer thou truly. Soti continued, the seven-flamed god, having heard these words of the Rakshasa, became exceedingly distressed, being afraid of telling a falsehood and equally afraid of Brugge's curse. And the god at length made answer in words that came out slowly. This Puloma was, indeed, first chosen by thee, O Rakshasa, but she was not taken by thee with holy rites and invocations. But this far-famed lady was bestowed by her father on Brugge as a gift from desire of blessing. She was not bestowed on thee, O Rakshasa. This lady was duly made by the Rishi Brugge his wife with Vedic rites in my presence. This is she, I know her. I dare not speak a falsehood. O thou best of the Rakshasas, falsehood is never respected in this world. Section V. Puloma Parva continued. Soti said, O Brahmana, having heard these words from the god of fire, the Rakshasa assumed the form of a boar, and seizing the lady carried her away with the speed of the wind, even of thought. Then the child of Brugge lying in her body, enraged at such violence, dropped from his mother's womb, for which he obtained the name of Kayavana. And the Rakshasa, perceiving the infant drop from the mother's womb, shining like the sun, quitted his grasp of the woman, fell down and was instantly converted into ashes. And the beautiful Puloma, distracted with grief, O Brahmana of the Brugge race, shook up her offspring Kayavana, the son of Brugge, and walked away. And Brahma, the grandfather of all, himself saw her, the faultless wife of his son, weeping. And the grandfather of all comforted her who was attached to the son. And the drops of tears which rolled down her eyes formed a great river. and that river began to follow the footsteps of the wife of the great ascetic Drug. And the grandfather of the worlds, seeing that river follow the path of his son's wife, gave it a name himself, and he called it Badhus Ara, and it passeth by the hermitage of Caervanna. And in this manner was born Caervanna of great ascetic power, the son of Drug. And Drug saw his child Caervanna and its beautiful mother. And the Rishi in a rage asked her, By whom wast thou made known to that Rakshasa who resolved to carry thee away? O thou of agreeable smiles, the Rakshasa could not know thee as my wife. Therefore tell me who it was that told the Rakshasa so, in order that I may curse him through anger. And Purloma replied, O possessor of the 6 attributes, I was identified to the Rakshasa by Agni, the god of fire. And he, the Rakshasa, bore me away, who cried like the Karari, female osprey. And it was only by the ardent splendor of this my son that I was rescued, for the Rakshasa, seeing this infant, let me go, and himself falling to the ground was turned into ashes. Soti continued, Brug, upon hearing this account from Purloma, became exceedingly enraged. And in excess of passion the Rishi cursed Agni, saying, Thou shalt eat of all things. So ends the 6th section called the Curse on Agni in the Adi Parva. Section 7. Purloma Parva continued. Soti said, The god of fire enraged at the curse of Brug, thus addressed the Rishi, What meaneth this rashness, O Brahmana, that thou hast displayed towards me? What transgression can be imputed to me, who was laboring to do justice and speak the truth impartially? Being asked, I gave the true answer. A witness who, when interrogated about a fact of which he hath knowledge, representeth otherwise than it is, ruineth his ancestors and descendants both to the 7th generation. He, too, who, being fully cognizant of all the particulars of an affair, doth not disclose what he knoweth, when asked, is undoubtedly stained with guilt. I can also curse thee, but Brahmanas are held by me in high respect. Although these are known to thee, O Brahmana, I will yet speak of them, so please attend. Having, by ascetic power, multiplied myself, I am present in various forms, in places of the daily Homa, at sacrifices extending for years, in places where holy rites are performed, such as marriage, etc., and at other sacrifices, with the butter that is poured upon my flame according to the injunctions prescribed in the Vedas. The Devas and the Baitres are appeased. The Devas are the waters, the Baitres are also the waters. The Devas have for the Baitres an equal right to the sacrifices called Darshas and Purnimases. The Devas therefore are the Baitres and the Paitres, the Devas. They are identical beings, worshipped together and also separately at the changes of the moon. The Devas and the Baitres eat what is poured upon me. I am therefore called the mouth of the Devas and the Paitres. At the new moon the Paitres, and at the full moon the Devas, are fed through my mouth, eating of the clarified butter that is poured on me. Being, as I am, their mouth, how am I to be an eater of all things, clean and unclean? Then Agni, alter reflecting for a while, withdrew himself from all places, from places of the daily Homa of the Brahmanas, from all long extending sacrifices, from places of holy rites, and from other ceremonies, without their and vashaks, and deprived of their swadas and swagas, sacrificial mantras during offerings. The whole body of creatures became much distressed at the loss of their sacrificial fire. The rishis, in great anxiety, went to the gods and addressed them thus, Ye immaculate beings, the 3 regions of the universe are confounded at the cessation of their sacrifices and ceremonies in consequence of the loss of fire. Ordain what is to be done in Tin's matter, so that there may be no loss of time. Then the rishis and the gods went together to the presence of Brahma, and they represented to him all about the curse on Agni and the consequent interruption of all ceremonies. And they said, O thou greatly fortunate, Once Agni hath been cursed by Brug for some reason. Indeed, being the mouth of the gods, and also the first who eateth of what is offered in sacrifices, the eater also of the sacrificial butter, how will Agni be reduced to the condition of one who eateth of all things promiscuously? And the creator of the universe, hearing these words of theirs, summoned Agni to his presence. And Brahma addressed Agni, the creator of all and eternal as himself, in these gentle words: Thou art the creator of the worlds, and thou art their destroyer. Thou preserves the three worlds, and thou art the promoter of all sacrifices and ceremonies. Therefore behave thyself so that ceremonies be not interrupted. And, O thou eater of the sacrificial butter, why dost thou act so foolishly, being, as thou art, the Lord of all? Thou alone art always pure in the universe, and thou art its stay. Thou shalt not, with all thy body, be reduced to the state of one who eateth of all things promiscuously. O thou of flame, the flame that is in thy viler parts shall alone eat of all things alike. The body of thine which eateth of flesh, being in the stomach of all carnivorous animals, shall also eat of all things promiscuously. And as everything touched by the sun's rays becometh pure, so shall everything be pure that shall be burnt by thy flame. Thou art, O fire, the supreme energy born of thy own power. Then, O Lord, by that power of thine make the Rishi's curse come true. Continue to receive thy own potion and that of the gods, offered at thy mouth. Soti continued. Then Agni replied to the grandfather, So be it. And he then went away to obey the command of the Supreme Lord. The gods and the Rishis also returned in delight to the place whence they had come. And the Rishis began to perform as before their ceremonies and sacrifices. And the gods in heaven and all creatures of the world rejoiced exceedingly. And Agni too rejoiced in that he was free from the prospect of sin. Thus, O possessor of the 6 attributes, had Agni been cursed in the days of yore by Brug, and such is the ancient history connected with the destruction of the Rakshasa, Purloma, and the birth of Kayavana. Thus endeth the 7th section of the Purloma Parva of the Adi Parva of the blessed Mahabharata. Section 8. Purloma Parva continued. Soti said, O Brahmana, Kayavana, the son of Brug, begot the son in the womb of his wife Sukanya, and that son was the illustrious Pramati of resplendent energy. And Pramati begot in the womb of Britachya son called Uru, and Uru begot on his wife Pramadvara son called Zanaka. And I shall relate to you, in detail, O Brahmana, the entire history of Uru's abundant energy. O listen to it then in full. Formerly there was a great Rishi called Sthulakesa, possessed of ascetic power and learning and kindly disposed towards all creatures. At that time, O Brahmana sage, his Vavasu, the king of the Gandharvas, it is said, had intimacy with Manika, the celestial dancing girl, and the Apsara, Manika, O thou of the Brug race, when her time was come, brought forth an infant near the hermitage of Sthulakesa, and dropping the newborn infant on the banks of the river, O Brahmana, Manaka, the Apsara, being destitute of pity and shame, went away. And the Rishi, Sthulakesa, of great ascetic power, discovered the infant lying forsaken in a lonely part of the riverside. And he perceived that it was a female child, bright as the offspring of an immortal and blazing, as it were, with beauty. And the great Brahmana, Sthulakesa, the first of Munis, seeing that female child, and filled with compassion, took it up and reared it. And the lovely child grew up in his holy habitation, then noble-minded and blessed Rishi Sthulakesa, performing in due succession all the ceremonies, beginning with that at birth as ordained by the divine law. And because she surpassed all of her sex in goodness, beauty, and every quality, the great Rishi called her by the name of Pramadvara. And the pious Uru, having seen Pramadvara in the hermitage of Sthulakesa, became one whose heart was pierced by the god of love. And Uru, by means of his companions, made his further Pramati, the son of Drug, acquainted with his passion. And Pramati demanded that of the far-famed Stulakesa for his son. And her foster father betrothed the virgin Pramadvara to Uru, fixing the nuptials for the day when the star Bhagadevata, Purva Falguni, would be ascendant. Then, within a few days of the time fixed for the nuptials, the beautiful virgin, while at play with companions of her own sex, the time having come, impelled by fate, trod upon the serpent, which she did not perceive as it lay in coil. And the reptile, urged to execute the will of fate, violently darted its envenomed fangs into the body of the heedless maiden. And stung by that serpent, she instantly dropped senseless on the ground. Her color faded and all the graces of her person went off. And with dishevelled hair she became a spectacle of woe to her companions and friends. And she, who was so agreeable to behold, became, on her death, what was too painful to look at. And the girl of slender waist lying on the ground like one asleep, being overcome with the poison of the snake, once more became more beautiful than in life. And her foster father and the other holy ascetics who were there, all saw her lying motionless upon the ground with the splendor of a lotus. And then there came many noted Brahmanas filled with compassion, and they sat around her. And Swastyadriya, Mahajana, Gashika, Sankamkala, Udalaka, Hatha, and Sweta of great renown, the Radwana, Kornakatsya, Ashtishna, Gautama, Pramati, and Pramati's son Uru, and other inhabitants of the forest, came there. And when they saw that maiden lying dead on the ground, overcome with the poison of the reptile that has bitten her, they all wept, filled with compassion. But Uru, mortified beyond measure, retired from the scene. So ends the 8th section of the Purloma Parva of the Adi Parva of the Blessed Mahabharata. Section 9. Purloma Parva continued. Soti said, while those illustrious Brahmanas were sitting around the dead body of Pramadvara, Uru, sorely afflicted, retired into a deep wood and wept aloud. And overwhelmed with grief, he indulged in much piteous lamentation. And, remembering his beloved Pramadvara, he gave vent to his sorrow in the following words: Alas! The delicate fair one that increaseth my affliction layeth upon the bare ground. What can be more deplorable to us, her friends? If I have been charitable, if I have performed acts of penance, if I have ever revered my superiors, let the merit of these arts restore to life my beloved one. If from my birth I have been controlling my passions, adhered to my vows, let the fair Pramadvara rise from the ground. And while Uru was indulging in these lamentations from the loss of his bride, a messenger from heaven came to him in the forest and addressed him thus: The words thou utterest, O Uru, in thy affliction are certainly ineffectual. For, O pious man, one belonging to this world whose days have run out can never come back to life. This poor child of the Gandharva and Apsara has had her days run out. Therefore, O child, thou shouldst not consign thy heart to sorrow. The great gods, however, have provided beforehand a means of her restoration to life. And if thou compliest with it, thou mayest receive back thy Pramadvara. And Uru replied, O messenger of heaven, what is that which the gods have ordained? Tell me in full so that, on hearing, I may comply with it. It behoveth thee to deliver me from grief. And the celestial messenger said unto Uru, Resign half of thy own life to thy bride, and then, O Uru of the race of Dhruva, thy Pramadvara shall rise from the ground. O best of celestial messengers, I most willingly offer a moiety of my own life in favor of my bride. Then let my beloved one rise up once more in her dress and lovable form. Soti said, then the king of Gandharvas, the father of Pramadvara, and the celestial messenger, both of excellent qualities, went to the god Dharma, the judge of the dead, and addressed him, saying, If it be thy will, O Dharmara, let the amiable Pramadvara, the betrothed wife of Uru, now lying dead, rise up with the moiety of Uru's life. And Dharmara answered, O messenger of the gods, if it be thy wish, let Pramadvara, the betrothed wife of Uru, rise up endued with the moiety of Uru's life. Soti continued, and when Dharmara had said so, that maiden of superior complexion,
Hello?
Pramadvara, endued with the moiety of
Hello?
Uru's life, rose as from her slumber. This bestowal by Uru the moiety of his own span of life to resuscitate his bride afterwards led, as it would be seen, to a curtailment of Uru's life. And on the
Oh, what?
auspicious day their fathers gladly married them with due rites.
Uh,
And the couple passed their days devoted
no,
to each other.
not really.
And
Hold on a
having
second.
obtained such
You
a
think,
wife as is hard to be
maybe
found,
she's,
beautiful and
hold
bright
on.
as the filaments of the
Stop.
lotus, made to vow for the destruction
Stop.
of the
Hold on.
serpent race. And whenever he saw a serpent he became filled with great wrath and